All right, Tony, I want to pick a fight with you because I think that too few people consider buying used camera gear, and I think it's the correct option for most people.
I think there are some legit reasons to buy new gear. So let's talk about it, as well as like how to actually make sure you don't get screwed over buying used gear.
Okay, it's something everyone should think about though. But first, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. If you want a new website, portfolio, store, you can go to Squarespace and make it happen. And it's so easy to do. You can build your own website in like 10 minutes for free because they have a 14-day free trial. So go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. That's CHELSEA. Thank you, Squarespace.
I like that you said a new website, as if somebody was going to go on Facebook Marketplace and pick up a used.
It's always new. It's always the same price.
Okay, well, one benefit to buying used gear is that if it's in stock, it's in stock.
Yes, this has been happening to me so much where everything I go to buy is taking forever to ship.
I know, I have so many things that I've been waiting for months.
Yeah.
Nikon Z9.
I know, we can't even get cameras. I can't get a couch. I can't get new chairs. It's taking a very long time. So if you find a used camera for sale, it's in stock. It just exists. You can get it.
Okay, so that's one benefit. But of course, the biggest benefit is that it can save you money, right? Used gear is almost always less expensive than newer gear. Though I will say the lack of new gear has been pushing up used gear prices. Used gear is actually pretty expensive now, but it's still less expensive.
But every year we get a new camera out and the price is really expensive, and then over the course of the year the price goes down until the holidays, and then it's like these huge sales. So why are you going to pay a premium when it first comes out when you know it's going on sale the next year? So instead of buying all of that expensive brand new gear, you could get last year's brand new gear and get a better price, and your money can go further. I know you agree with that.
Or even go back a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Let's imagine you've decided you want the new Sony a7 IV and the new Sony 70-200.
Yeah.
First of all, you can't get those right now. Neither one is shipping yet. They're both great. They will run you about $3,900. Once you've made that decision, you've decided on your budget. So let's ask what you could get instead for that same amount of money if you shopped used. If you were a portrait photographer, I would instead push you to a used Nikon D850, which goes for about $2,100, like in remanufactured condition. Used Nikon 70-200 f2.8, the latest generation of the DSLR lens, believe it or not, will go for about $1,000, a great price. So together, you're spending $3,100. You're getting so much more. You're getting 36% more megapixels, so much more detailed photos. You're getting an extra stop of light from switching from an f4 lens to an f2.8 lens. That means more background blur, better low light performance. You're also getting like the better controls and the lighted buttons.
Yeah, but you're also getting $800, so then you can buy lighting gear or another lens. And this example is very, very expensive, and I do appreciate you making my point for me, since we're supposed to be arguing, but you just seem totally on board. But I think that these differences get even more pronounced as your budget gets tighter, because people always come to me and they're like, I want to spend $500 and I want this brand new camera. And I always say, whoa, hold up, slow down. New is cool, but if you go back 4 years, you can get a better camera than this entry-level $500 camera, and your money's going to go farther. So it's something to consider. This example, I just want to say, don't come at us because maybe the Sony a7 IV is not right for you, and maybe the Nikon D850 is not right for you. This is just one example. So if you're shooting video selfies, obviously the D850 will not be better. But we're saying there's a possibility that there's a far less expensive camera with more value that you can get for your money.
Are you suggesting that some of the commenters might miss the bigger point and instead focus on small minutia that we're talking about?
I know it to be true because I've been doing this for 10 years, and it's like the comments come up in my mind before they ever actually exist. Another thing, Tony, that concerns me, okay, I buy all the new gear because I want to be able to relate to people what that experience is like. So I switch cameras a lot. I call myself polycamerous. I know you guys like to tease me about switching cameras, but I do that so that I can figure out the long-term issues with cameras. When you buy a brand new camera, you're not getting long-term reviews because you're getting the first reviews. I know this because I'm a camera reviewer. They send me one. Sometimes I get it for a few days. Sometimes I get it for a few weeks. It's not really long enough to wrap our heads around everything that the camera can do. And I'll tell you, when I switched to the R5, I made my first review, and then when I started using it, I realized that my memory cards were bricking the camera to the point where I had to take out the battery, turn it off, take off the battery, take out the SD cards, format it in another camera to get my camera working. And that happened to me in the field. And I was having other problems with the camera's autofocusing where I had to troubleshoot it and figure out how to readjust all the settings on the camera to get it to work for me. That took months, and I don't think I updated my initial review for like 6 months. And so a lot of people bought the camera before they knew that. Now, I was able to troubleshoot those problems and then relay them to you, and Canon did some firmware updates and things like that, but it took a while, and the price probably went down in that time. So one of the benefits is waiting for long-term reviews, waiting till the average person has their hands on it and people are in forums and stuff writing down problems. Then you really know what you're buying.
Speaking of forums, whether it's a car or a camera, I will go to the owners' forums, the enthusiast forums, and look at what people are saying. You're always going to have people complaining about problems, but look at the severity of those problems. If they're minor things like, how do I make this work? That's okay. Go ahead and get that piece of equipment. If they're huge complaints like, this piece of equipment stopped working completely, how do I fix it?
Or there's oil on the sensor. Remember that Nikon?
D600, right?
Yeah, there was like a recall, so.
Maybe stay away. Just a good way to assess a particular model.
I think forums can be really biased because we bought a car and there were a lot of fanboys in the forums and there were real problems happening, and people would ignore them because they spent so much money on the car.
Yeah, but that's Tesla fanboys. They're a special breed.
But my bigger point is that take information from multiple places. Like forums have value, like reviews have value, but
none of that exists for brand new gear because people haven't had it yet.
Yeah. And like in the same vein as that argument, once things have been out there for a while, then you'll really understand the camera. So you'll have all the troubleshooting, the hacks, the information on the forums.
It's the devil you know, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we've been making an argument for buying used. Thank you for helping me. I guess I'll help you make your argument as well.
Sorry, I'm being too balanced about it.
One thing I know we're definitely not going to argue about is the fact that you need your own Squarespace website, because if you are trying to book gigs, or if you're even trying to just show off your work to your friends, you want them to see it in a clean area where they're seeing your best photos first and not just in chronological order like on social media.
Right.
And not only that, this is the perfect time of year to sell your prints and make a little extra money, and you can do that on Squarespace. I started doing that, and it's so much fun to show people what a gallery version of your photo would look like. So go to squarespace.com/Chelsea, and you can get a 14-day free trial, no credit card needed, you don't have to remember to cancel, and when you decide to buy it, which I know you will, you can get 10% off with the coupon code Chelsea, that's CHELSEA, and I'm pretty happy with mine.
So we're talking about whether you should buy used gear and how to do it.
Yeah.
And I want to make an argument for new gear, and that is it has a new gear warranty.
Oh, how many times have you used that? Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to be helping you.
I actually don't think I've ever used a warranty on a piece of new equipment because while I've broken gear, that kind of stuff isn't covered under warranty anyway. You're still paying for the repair. But it is nice to have that extra assurance. Now, a lot of used places like proper stores will offer their own warranty, and that's very valuable. But you have to send the gear back to them. And if you're like us, where you're a member of Canon Professional Services, Nikon Professional Services, that's an extra convenience to have this one central point of contact for repairs, and they might offer you quicker turnarounds and stuff. But it's a minor benefit. But if you're set on buying new gear, it might be something worth paying a couple $100 for.
It's something to take into consideration. You do get the warranty if you buy from a reputable used gear dealer, though.
Right.
So.
Another pitfall of buying used is that gear might be gray market. I'll tell you personally how I discovered this and then tell you what gray market is. I bought a Nikon 70-200 f2.8 when we originally switched from the Canon 5D over to the Nikon D810. And I found a good price for it. It worked great for about 6 months, and then the autofocus failed. So I called up Nikon Professional Services, I read them my serial number, and they said, no, we are not fixing that, not for any price. Because that had been purchased in a different country than the United States. Thus, the warranty did not apply to me as a U.S. citizen. And therefore, I had a $2,000 brick
Ooh.
that could not be repaired. And that ended up costing me
Paperweight.
way more than it would if I had just bought new and had some valid warranty, or if I'd bought it from a reputable seller. But instead, I just found someone on eBay.
I don't do that. I buy from a reputable dealer.
Well, and I hope other people will learn from my mistake too, because that's a really expensive mistake. So this practice of selling something in a different country than where it was manufactured for is called the gray market. And manufacturers charge different prices in different countries, so they don't want this sort of inter-country transfer of products, and that's why they refuse to support it. I would like to tell you how to make sure that new gear you're buying is not gray market. I could find no way to do that. Theoretically, you could find out by the serial number, but I could not find any place to put the serial number in on either Canon or Nikon's website. Thus, if you're buying from an unreputable seller, I don't know what to tell you. You're taking a gamble.
You're taking a gamble unless you buy from a reputable second-hand camera gear store.
I want to talk about where you can buy used gear, and you probably know some of them. Like we have a sponsor, KEH, and other big outlets like Amazon, B&H. They'll sell used gear too. A lot of people will buy on eBay, myself included. I bought quite a bit of gear on eBay, and most of it has worked out fine. But when you do, be sure you really check out the seller, and I would say never buy anything that doesn't have a return period, because that is an option on eBay, and you can get pretty well screwed over. Other places to buy used gear are Facebook Marketplace is extremely popular now.
Heck no.
Very shady,
No
very
way.
suspicious. Gear could be stolen. There's no way to know.
Just the emotional part of buying from Facebook Marketplace. Have you ever tried to do that?
Is this item still available?
I've tried to sell it, and people were trying to buy other stuff in my picture. I don't like it there. I would not recommend.
Can't buy my dog. Only the kayak is for sale.
Don't do that. Don't go there.
People also buy and sell gear on forums, like Fred Miranda forums have a pretty good section for that. I actually consider that to be a little more trustworthy, because there you could at least click on the seller's name and see if they had a history with the camera. Like maybe they've been for the last 5 years talking about Nikon cameras and now they're selling their D850. That makes me feel a lot more safe than just some rando on Facebook Marketplace, especially if they don't even know about the gear. Like I like to make sure the person has actually used it, just as some assurance that it wasn't stolen.
I was going to say, that's a big concern of mine now that we've been talking about our story about our friend having his gear stolen. I don't want to buy from a place where I can't verify that it's not stolen. I guess that's hard to verify anyway, but...
So this leads me to talking about some of the perils of buying used. And one is that you might be getting stolen gear if you buy it from a non-reputable source. Another is Band-Aid fixes. Sometimes a lens will develop an aperture that sticks and it doesn't shut down all the way. Now, what you might be able to do is to cool the lens. Like you could put it in your freezer a little bit. Things will tend to slide a little bit better.
Don't tell them how to do it.
And that'll get you through the sale of it as somebody's checking it out to make sure that it works. But then as soon as it warms up, it's going to be sticking again. There are lots of little ways to Band-Aid things, and sellers do this. They steal from you by misleading you. It's not just cameras, it's used cars, it's anything, right? If people think they can pass something off and get rid of it, they're done with it. They don't care what happens after that point.
That's messed up. I love to hear about a good grift, but that's really messed up. What do? You hold a lens and you're like, this is freezing cold. And it's July in Miami. What's happening?
Maybe more often it's something like lubricating the shutter. You know, the shutter will work for a week, but it might then start to dry up. There are lots of little quick fixes that'll get something through a brief inspection and leave the buyer with a broken piece of gear that requires an expensive repair. You might not also notice, you know, if you're picking something up from Facebook Marketplace, you don't want to spend an hour and a half in a photo shoot with it testing out every feature, right? So I would just normally give it like a quick look over and take a couple of sample shots and be done. But you get back home and find out the diopter doesn't adjust, or one of the buttons doesn't work properly, or I don't know, the memory card doesn't pop out, like it's permanently stuck in there or something. All actual problems that we've had.
There are a lot of things you would have to check if you wanted to look at your gear yourself. That's true. You'd have to do a proper inspection. You'd have to have some education about how a camera works to check each thing that's important and look for signs of wear and tear.
I want to make a separate video about this.
You should do that. You sound like,
So subscribe to see that, because I'm actually
Okay.
going to show you lots of like lenses with fungus in it and different things to look
are you
for.
going to show them how to do the old refrigerator trick or?
This is not hacking buyers. But in the meantime, I do want to tell you some of the things to look for. The number one thing people ask about is the shutter count. Whenever you're selling something,
Yeah, I hear
what
it.
is the shutter count?
Yeah.
It's actually not that easy to figure out the shutter count. And a lot of sellers won't know how to do that or won't be able to do it. You can't figure it out on every camera. With some cameras, it might be embedded in a piece of metadata, or maybe you can run an application that connects over USB and reads it, but it's never actually that straightforward. But it's also not that important, I think. Like a lot of modern cameras especially will have electronic shutters. So the camera could be heavily used for many years and have almost a zero shutter count.
Yeah, there are other places to look for wear and tear that it might be more easy for the casual observer to see.
Yeah. Or I should say, if it has an electronic shutter, that will increment the shutter count, but not actually use the mechanical shutter. Same thing with video. Video does not increment the shutter count at all, even though you might be using it for 100 hours a week. So it's not necessarily a good indicator of wear. I would just physically look at the camera. Like look around the grips, the buttons will be worn out. We've handled very well used cameras and it's immediately obvious. There are so many cameras on the market where the person bought it, used it 3 times and is selling it. So look for that.
I usually
Don't
find
get the one
it's-
from the pro.
Yeah, you want to find the person that tried to take up a new hobby and had a lot of money and then they quit and it sat in their closet for a year.
Yeah, dentist, right? I always make fun of dentists. I don't know
About the
why.
dentists. They make our teeth nice. I think there are places where you look for wear and tear that it's obvious, like the door of where the battery is, the SD card door, all of the buttons, the grips if they're worn. You know the camera was used a lot.
Yeah. I want to give you some tips on how to specifically check out a piece of gear that you happen to have in your hand. This can be really hard to do on online listings, so you can zoom in on the pictures and try to assess some of it. It's easily hidden. You want to make sure that every single button works. Push it and release it multiple times. It should feel easy going in and out. You want to check that both the card slots work if it has 2 card slots. Test the diopter by the viewfinder to make sure it can adjust and it goes back to its original position. Put different lenses on and off to make sure that the lens mount is smooth and proper, because if somebody drops the camera, that can get bent, and from that point forward, the lens will be difficult to put on, even though it might technically work. Check the stabilization on both the lens and the body, if they exist, to make sure they work properly. Put the camera into aperture priority and adjust the lens, if you're buying a lens, from the widest setting to the smallest setting. Hold down the depth of field button while adjusting it, and it should adjust the aperture in real time, so you can make sure that it works smoothly, because apertures often get sticky. Check for moisture inside the battery compartment. You might take a little piece of a brown paper bag and put it in there, because it'll be visible if it happens to be a little bit wet. You'd be shocked. People will dunk their camera in water, let it dry out a little bit, and it'll work for a month, but the corrosion continues on the inside. So that's kind of a sweet spot for people to sell it and pass those problems on to the buyer, right? You want to try to find that moisture if at all possible. With lenses, you want to zoom and focus and make sure it goes smoothly throughout the entire extent. You want to shoot with it and listen for any weird sounds. Like any weird sounds, that's a good deal breaker, because that's some mechanical rubbing that's happening that's going to shorten the lifespan of it.
If you shake it and it sounds like a maraca, that's probably bad.
Also, look around all the screws, any panels, and look for signs of repair, like little scratches next to the screws. That probably means somebody was in there messing around. And
in there.
you don't buy somebody else's project, right?
I don't want to buy a lens from anyone who's doing micro adjustments. Like, leave it alone. I will say, when you buy from a reputable secondhand dealer, like I've been saying, they do check it, and there is a warranty, but it's usually not really long. So I would take the opportunity to right away use the gear as you plan to use it, and still keep an eye out for those things and make sure that it's working the way it should. Because they check it, but you want to check it again because you don't want something to fail once it's out of warranty.
Here's another argument for just buying new gear. When you buy new gear, you get a new battery with it. When you buy used gear, you get an old battery. Even if the camera was rarely used, the battery is going to be a couple
Just
of years
sitting
old.
there.
Especially if a camera isn't used regularly, then the battery doesn't get charged and discharged. It'll probably be completely full or completely empty the entire time. That severely degrades the lifespan of the battery. If you are buying a camera that seems in this condition, you should budget for a brand new manufacturer battery. Some people have luck with third-party batteries, but we have tested a lot of them, and they work fine for a few months, but after 6 months, they're randomly dying, ruining your photo shoot. So we still recommend for all manufacturers to buy name brand batteries.
You really had me in the first half because it sounded like you were into used gear.
I definitely am.
You just have some strong warnings.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to show people the positives and the negatives about it, but we always buy used gear when the option is available.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to review something, so we have no choice but to buy it new. But whenever possible, I buy it used, and then I'll go and I'll sell it later.
Well, that's what we thought of for the pros and cons of buying used gear. I really think you should consider it if you're the type of person that always wants to buy new. It doesn't have to be as scary as we've outlined. Like we said, you can just buy from a reputable secondhand dealer. And if you have any other suggestions, please put them in the comments down below. You might save somebody a little bit of heartache when they buy something that doesn't work. And
what if you want to show off your portfolio or set up a new website for your new restaurant? Are you going to go to Facebook Marketplace? No. Buy
I'm
somebody
never
else's
going there.
website? No, you don't want to buy a used website. What if it doesn't even have a warranty? You go to squarespace.com/Chelsea. They will set you up with a brand new website that includes support, just in case it does break, but it probably won't because they're really good at it. Squarespace makes it so easy to set up a website. Just drag your pictures in, set up your store, take appointments from clients, watch the analytics. It all happens magically. Go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea. And I'm going to spell that CHELSEA. Thank you, Squarespace.
all right, thank you. And we'll do that follow-up video where you actually tell people more about buying used gear
Coming soon.
coming soon.